I extend my warm welcome to all the students who are seeing me live, and I really express my hearty good luck to the students who are soon appearing the examinations, which will be conducted or which will be starting right from 9th of Mangsit. So here I will be dealing with the model questions that has been set by NEB, and the questions will be altogether asked for 40 marks. That's why the students who were used to taking the examinations for 100 marks will have slight changes this time. And the questions, according to this model provided by the NEB, we are going to focus on the same. First of all, let me take you to the basics. If you download the questions, the first question comprises of the passages, and this time the question is not of 15 marks. Rather, the question is of only 4 marks. And the passage will be provided to you. So how you deal with the passage is an important thing. Okay. First, don't be in a hurry. At least you give 10 minutes time or maybe 8 minutes time to the passage. So read the passage carefully until you understand. And then, when you have properly understood the passage, please see the questions that have been provided. And then find the answers, correct answers, okay, where the questions or where the answers are hidden. And then answer the questions accordingly. Seeing the questions pattern, you can use the way, you can use some words that have been that have already been given in the questions. Okay. So after you finish the passage section, the next question is question number 2. And here, this time from the heritage of words, you are not asked any long question, rather you are asked to attempt any 3 short questions. The questions will be like this, or the starting is like this. Answer any 3 questions from the heritage of words. And now, from the very beginning chapter till the last chapter, focusing on the importance of the chapters, I will be giving you short summary of each of the chapters. Okay? The first chapter is from the heritage of words, grandmother. In the chapter, grandmother, the poet, it's a poem, the poet Ray Young Beer expresses his love and compassion towards his grandmother. He is very much impressed by his grandmother, who is no more alive today. And he relates the love and affection towards his grandmother by relating with different sensory things. For example, he says, he recalls back to the past, how he remembers his grandmother when he used to see an old lady carrying a plastic shopping bag and wearing purple scarf. He would never fail to recognize that it was his grandma. And so it is a sense of sight, something he saw and recognized that it was his grandma. Similarly, the sense of hearing. Whenever he heard some sound from the far, he used to remember or he used to recognize that it was the sound of his grandmother. Similarly, the sense of smell. When somebody from the back touched him, the warm touch, he would never fail to recognize without turning back that it was his grandma, because her hands were very warm and the hands carried the smell of roots. Okay? Here the smell of root has some symbolic features. Okay? And similarly, he also uses other senses while remembering his grandmother. So the questions might be asked to you. So what are the things that he remembers about his grandmother? So you may say that purple scarf, plastic shopping bag, many things, okay? And you can relate other sensory organs that he has mentioned in the poem. And what kind of impression does the poet have about his grandmother? The poet has a very lasting impression about his grandmother. He really loved his grandmom, and still the images, the love, affection shown by his grandmom is haunting him. So he is unable to forget those lovely moments that he had spent with his grandmom. Okay, now let me take you to the next lesson. It is about love. So, from About Love, you may even be asked to write the character sketch of Elohim. Who is Elohim? Elohim is a middle class villager who the story belongs to Russia, and he goes to Moscow for his further studies. So he goes to Moscow for his further studies. And after he returns from after finishing his further studies, he comes to know that his father had taken debt for his education, and now he decides to stay uh, in the village to pay the debt taken by his father for his education. Although he had been graduated in law, okay? He was a lawyer, he was a professional person, but he decided to stay in the village because he thought that it was the right decision for him. But he could not get a good job there, so he had to be a farmer. Okay, and he spent a lot of time in farming, and he found his life very monotonous. But luckily, he was invited from the town, uh, and he used to go to the town frequently, and he used to uh, work there as a lawyer, as a part-time lawyer. And he happened to meet Luganovic, one of the lawyers, one of the, you can say, very renowned and experienced lawyer. And one day, when they had finished a very important case, he was invited by Luganovic to his home, and then he happened to meet Luganovic's wife, who was Anna. And Elohim fell in love with Anna, but he could not express his love to Anna because he was a married lady. And Elohim, being the friend of Luganovic, it was not good for him. It was not a decent, you can say, thing to do so. So even Anna was in love with Elohim because he was a good looking man and he was a jolly natured person, and Anna was a very fascinating lady. So she had all the good qualities that a man seeks in any woman, any lover. But both of them could not express their love for a long time. As a result, Anna suffered from mental problem, and she had been sent to another town for a treatment. And in this way, they expressed their love for the first time in the train when she was departing for her treatment. So they said that they loved each other from the very beginning day when they had seen each other, but due to the social, you can say, constraints, they could not share their feelings with each other. And in this way, Elohim, after expressing his love towards Anna, he returned to his village, and he never uh, continued his professional career as a lawyer. Rather, he stayed in the village as a farmer. So he became unsuccessful both as a lover as and as a, you can say, professional person. So Elohim's character is case might be asked, and you might be asked other questions as well. Now let me take you to the next chapter. It is two long-term problems. Two long-term problems. So what are the two long-term problems? The two long-term problems are overpopulation and deforestation. The writer Moti Nishani, who is an interdisciplinarian, he discusses these two, or he introduces these two long-term problems that have been threatening the world now. Okay, and these two global problems have their own causes, effects, and even we do have some solutions. The writer talks about the causes, effects, and solutions to these twin problems. So, what could be the causes of overpopulation and deforestation? Maybe lack of education, lack of awareness about the use of family planning measures, and similarly, social and religious aspects are also there. And the progress made by medical science has a lot to do in the increase of population. And deforestation, the prime cause of deforestation is overpopulation itself. Okay, when the population starts growing, this population moves towards the forest and it just clears the forest areas for different purposes like the settlements, like for farming and for other things like making the grazing lanes for the animals, their livestock and all. Okay, so you could be asked to write about the causes of overpopulation and deforestation. Similarly, you might even be asked to write about what are the effects of both overpopulation and this deforestation. The effects are all kinds of pollution. When there is overpopulation, this growing population brings a lot of pollution, different kinds of pollution, you know already. Okay. Similarly, the crime rates will also increase, and there will also be unemployment problems, the attack of diseases. Okay. And similarly, there will be lots of natural calamities, for example, flood, landslide, drought, and similar others due to both overpopulation and deforestation. And how should or how would we get rid of both these problems, or how would we minimize both these problems? So there are many ways to tackle with these problems, these challenges. The writer mentions a few measures to come out of these two challenging problems. For example, by awareing people about the importance of trees, by awareing people that population explosion is not at all good for any country, by awareing people to use different family planning measures, by awareing people by starting a kind of awareness campaign to plant trees in the abandoned lands, and by replacing the wooden furnitures with some other furniture, we can save our trees, and we can also uh, lessen our population problem by giving education to the people. So these are the things the writer has talked in details in the essay, Two Long-Term Problems, Too Many People, Too Few Trees. Now let me take you to another important lesson, okay, or story. The story is itself entitled A Story Written by Dylan Thomas. So, in this story, we see the life of the adults from a small boy's point of view. There's a boy who lives with his uncle and his aunt, okay, and he looks into the world of the adults in his own way, okay, and it is about one day's voyage or one day's trip to the place named Port Cow. These people, his uncle and his friends, 20 friends or 19 friends, they every year they plan to spend one day outside their village so that they could have lots of enjoyment, they could drink, they could enjoy with each other. And this time they are planning to go to Port Cow. And this time, uncle even takes this boy with him. Although uncle's wife doesn't like the idea of her husband to go for such annual excursion because he drinks heavily in such excursions and she has to manage everything herself. So it is very difficult for her. Okay, and what kind of relationship do this couple have? with each other. The boy also discusses about the relationship between Mr. Thomas and his wife. The boy says that they have a very loving relationship. Okay, they and Mr. Thomas is a very jolly natured person. He teases his wife, and he makes a very funny environment. He's a kind of, you can say, very funny type of person. So he cracks jokes all the time, and he sings when he is drunk. Okay, whereas his wife has been compared with a cat, and uncle has been compared with a buffalo, and even their physical structure is totally different. Uncle is a very large sized man, that's why he has been compared with the buffalo, and his wife is very pretty, and she is very cute looking like a kid. Okay, and she is very clean, and she has maintained her house very clean and tidy, in the clean and tidy way. And yes, they go for the annual outing, and uncle's wife goes to her mother's place because he is offended. She is not very happy with her husband's decision. And these people, his uncle's friends, his uncle, and himself, they go on the tour, 1 day tour. Although have they want to spend the day in Portugal, but they never happen to reach there because most of their time gets spent in different, I can say, public houses. Okay, so when they enter any pub house, it is very difficult for them to move out of that public house. So they are heavily drunk, and that's why, although they enjoy their outing very much, but they don't reach the appointed place named Porthcawl. Okay, so you might be asked some short questions from this chapter as well. Okay, so there are some other chapters from the heritage of words which might be important. And this time you won't be asked long questions, so you will only be asked short questions. So you have to attempt any three questions, and each question consists of 3 marks. Okay. And then the last voyage of the gossip. So this is okay. So let me write the chapter. The last of the host sea. So the story is written using the stream of consciousness style. It's quite complex style that has been imposed by the by the writer. Okay, and the story is centered on the character whose name is not given. He's a young boy who is hated by the society, and he lives with his poor widow mother, okay, in a very, I can say, rough hut. And his mother goes from door to door begging for food. And the boy is often called by the villagers as the son of the widow. So that's why the boy doesn't want to meet the villagers. He has a very negative image of these villagers. But the boy wants to prove himself. The boy wants to prove his manhood. The boy wants to prove his strength, that even I am a better person. Although I have been neglected, ignored by the society, but one day I will prove to everyone that how efficient, how clever, and how manly I am. Okay? The boy continuously works hard without notifying anybody. Okay. So it is a kind of development of the boy, how the boy develops himself into a very strong man, and how he develops a manly voice, okay, and how he proves to the villagers. And this ship is rather symbolic. Okay, so in the story, there is a ship that the boy used to witness every year in the month of March. Okay, and the villagers never knew about the ship that used to just pass along the village sea. Okay. The boy only knew, and when he told his mom, even his mother did not want to accept this. And shortly after this, his mother died, and the boy became all alone. He became orphan. And the boy continuously used to spend his whole night staring into the sea, waiting for the ship to appear. And one day, he was able to help the ship or save the ship from a kind of a dangerous position. And he led the ship towards the village in the midnight or in the middle of the night. It was almost 4 a.m. in the morning when the boy led the ship carefully, because the ship, there were no lights seen in the ship, maybe due to the technical problems. And when the ship stopped nearby the village, see, the whole village was illuminated, and the villagers came out of their houses and they just opened their mouth. They were speechless, and then they understood the strength of the boy. So, how the boy develops himself into a very strong man with bold voice is the theme of this story. Okay, the next chapter that I want to take you to is I Have a Dream. So it is all time important chapter. I Have a Dream. It's actually a memorable speech delivered by Martin Luther King. So who was he? Martin Luther King was a kind of Afro-American campaign leader. Okay. So he had led the campaign to fight against all those atrocities, all those discriminations that the black people or these Afro-American people suffered from the ages. Okay. And through this speech that he had delivered in the year 1964 in the Washington, D.C., the capital city of the United States, he is leading this campaign. He is encouraging the African American people or the black people to fight for their rights. Okay, and uh, even some white peoples were supporting this campaign. Martin Luther King remembers the contribution of the President Abraham Lincoln, who had already given these black people their rights some 100 years back. But those rights were only written in the papers, which were never applied practically. And the situation or uh, the the situation of the black people was really very pathetic. So they were discriminated, so they were deprived of different kinds of rights, so they could not vote. Okay, and there were no schools where the black people could study. So this it was a kind of very appalling situation. So Martin Luther King says, how long shall we drink this poison? Now we will not drink the poison until we get our rights back that has already been given to us in the Constitution of the America. We will not turn back. We'll continue fighting for our rights. And in this way, he has a dream. What are the dreams of Martin Luther King? He has the dream that one day all the white and black American children will sit together to make a new nation known as the United States of America, which will be discrimination free. He has the dream that one day there will be a kind of society where people will not be judged by the color of their skin, rather by their intellectual capacity. So he has such dreams. And he says, he just encourages all these people who are witnessing this campaign, this procession, to take the lead. And he is promising to all these people that they will visit every nook and corner of the American society where these black people have been deprived of their rights, and all these people will come together to fight for their rights. So it is a very encouraging kind of speech. And uh, I hope you will have at least one question being asked from this speech. Okay, please read this speech or read the questions or answers from this lesson as well. Now let me take you to another important lesson. A child is born. So I am highlighting upon the important lessons because of the time constraints. A child is born. It is an essay. In this essay, the writer Germaine Greer from Australia, which is the western part of the world, she compares the Eastern society with the Western society regarding childbirth, regarding how we deal with the pregnancy, and how the children are raised. And she has given the examples of Bangladesh, which is one of the Eastern societies. It represents the Eastern society. And according to her, the values that are attached with women, uh, and these pregnant women and the women who have just given birth to their children while raising up their children, uh, the Eastern society is really supportive compared to the Western society. In the Eastern society, what happens when a girl gets married? She has to go to her husband's house, and everyone expects her to become a mother uh, quickly, okay, to lead the family. And it's a very joyous moment for every family member when a child is born. And when a lady is pregnant, she gets lots of care and support in the Eastern society. Whereas in the Western society, there is nobody to look after the pregnant lady except for her husband, who is most of the time away from his house, okay, just doing some job to make the living, okay. So the Eastern society's values are far better for the women. They support the women. So these women, when they are pregnant in the Eastern society, they never have any kind of fear in their mind. They think that everything will be settled easily because they see lots of their, I can say, sisters-in-law dealing with the same kind of situations. So they think that they can handle everything easily. And when the child is born, it's a very happy moment for every family member. They congratulate the new mother, and there are different occasions. For example, name giving ceremony, okay, where most of the women and the men from the near and dear ones or the relatives do come and congratulate the mother and the family, and the mother is fed with very nutritious food, and so it's a moment of joy. And in the Eastern society, I'm just talking about the Eastern society, whereas there are no such joyous moments, or there are no such festivals as they celebrate after the arrival of the baby in the Western society. Maybe the name giving ceremony happens in the church with very few members of their family. That's all. So there is such singing, dancing done by women, all these things, okay? And the Eastern society gives importance to such kind of singing, dancing, and all, which gives happiness to new mom. And yes, uh, the child is combinedly taken care by all the family members. So the child is not only the responsibility of the mom. So the child is the responsibility of all the family members. So the children are looked after by the entire family. So it's a joint family system. So everything happens unitedly. So one mother cooks the food, and another mom takes the children to the nearby river or pond for bathing them. Okay. Or one mother has the duty to feed the children. So the work is divided. Distribution of work is done accordingly. Okay. So the writer thinks that these values are really better in the Eastern society compared to the Western society. So how is uh, what are the differences between the Eastern and the Western society regarding childbirth, childbearing, and post-child birth treatment or care? So such kind of questions could be asked. So please, you prepare accordingly. Okay, now the next chapter. Um, so I'm just going to uh, deal with important lessons now. The next important lesson for me is the boarding house. The The boarding house is a beautiful story uh, about the youths or the adolescents living in the city of Dublin. The main characters of the story, written by James Joyce, are Mrs. Mooney, her husband Mr. Mooney, their children Jack, who is a son, and Polly, who is a daughter. So these are the characters, and yes, we should not forget an important character named Mr. Doran. And when the story begins, Mrs. Mooney is the daughter of a butcher. Okay? So they have their own meat business, they have the meat shop. And she is in love with one of the helpers in her meat shop. And later she marries Mr. Mooney, who is the helper. And after they get married, they open their own meat shop. But Mr. Mooney turns very violent after the death of his father in law, that is, Mrs. Mooney's father's death. Okay, brings lots of changes in the life of Mr. Mooney. So he turns very violent, he starts beating, and that is uh, beating his wife. Okay, and once he even wants to kill his wife. And now Mrs. Mooney thinks of taking divorce from her husband, and as their meat business has already ruined. You might be asked the question, how is their meat business ruined? Mr. Mooney often quarrels with his wife when the customers wait outside their shop to buy the meat, and he sells bad meat, okay, spoiled meat. So in this way, their meat business is ruined. And after she divorces from her husband, Mrs. Mooney takes the responsibility of her children, Jack, son, and Polly, daughter. Okay? And she sells her meat shop and she opens a boarding house. Okay? That's why the title is The Boarding House. So we know the boarding house is like the guest house which caters to the guest, both food and lodging facilities. So within a very short span of time, Mrs. Mooney's boarding house gets a wide popularity and no room is vacant. Every room is occupied. Okay. And there are young people who stay uh, in her boarding house. Yes. And as the time goes on, Mrs. Mooney comes to know that her daughter Polly is in love with one of the matured guests or customers named Mr. Doran, okay, who is staying in the same boarding house. And initially, Mrs. Mooney ignores everything as if she hasn't seen anything because she wants to take the right decision, and she is just waiting and watching. She is waiting for the right moment to interrupt Mr. Doran. And one day, she uh, she talks with her daughter and comes to know that they are in love with each other. And the next day, she calls Mr. Doran and she settles the problem with Mr. Doran efficiently because she thinks that the marriage between her daughter and Mr. Doran is the best solution. As Polly, her daughter, is very, you can say, she's just 19 years old, okay, and she's not very mature. And if she gets a person like Mr. Doran, who is a very mature man and who has his own job for the last 12 years, so he will keep Polly happy. And Mrs. Mooney, very cunningly, very cleverly, efficiently, she settles all these matters with Mr. Doran Although Mr. Doran is not very serious about his love or his relationship with Polly, maybe he was just spending some joyous moments with Polly. It was a kind of time pass situation. But Mrs. Mooney is very much determined lady, and she wants to take the strong decision by uh, settling with Mr. Doran. And finally, the story ends happily when Mr. Doran is ready to accept Polly as his wife. In this way, you might even be asked to write the character sketch of Mrs. Mooney. So, Mrs. Mooney is a determined, clever, cunning, and a lady with willpower. She has a decision making quality. So the story is centered on Mrs. Mooney. So if you get asked to write the character sketch, you just don't forget to give these features about Mrs. Mooney. And now let me take you to the last chapter, Hansel and Gretel. Hansel and Gretel. So it is also all-time important question. And this time you won't be asked a long question, so you might be asked short questions to deal with. So according to this fairy tale, this fairy tale has been collected by Grimm brothers. Okay, uh, and according to this fairy tale, there is an old woodcutter living at the edge of the forest with his wife and two children who have already lost their mother. So this lady is their stepmom, and they are very poor, and they often suffer from food crisis. And the mother plans to s- leave these stepchildren in the forest so that they would not face any food crisis, because there is food shortage in the house. And she uh, just talks with her husband, and finally she convinces the children's father, and these children happen to hear the conversation between the parents. And Hansel, without notifying anyone, goes outside the house in the night time when the parents are already sleeping, and he collects a few white pebbles. His plan is to drop those pebbles on the way to the forest, and he does so. And this time, even if they are left in the jungle, they return to their house. Okay? And after a few months, again, the mother asks the father to take them in the deep forest so that they would not return. Okay? They would not get back. This time, too, the children hear the conversation, but Hansel is unable to open the door. And what does he do? Is he makes small pieces of the bread that had been given to him by his stepmom to eat on the way. He's a kind of innocent boy, so he doesn't know that thousands of birds living in the jungle will eat them up. And when they are taken to the deep forest, they don't find the bread pieces that Hansel had dropped. And they are just lost in the forest for 3 nights, okay, 3 days. They just wander around the forest, okay. Finally, they reach a house. They are hungry, thirsty, okay, and they are restless. So finally, they reach the house that is made of bread, sugar, and cake. Okay. Actually, this house was a kind of enticing house to attract the children like Hansel and Gretel. And there was a witch who used to eat the flesh of the children, who used to eat the meat of the children. So when she finds these children approaching this house, she gives a warm welcome to the children. But the next day itself, she locks Hansel in the shade, a kind of case, and she makes Gretel her servant. Okay, and she plans to fatten up Hansel so that she would eat the tasty meat of Hansel. But Hansel plays a trick. Okay, he doesn't want to get fat. Okay? Every time when these witches, according to the story, have very poor eyesight. So when she asks Hansel to show his finger, he doesn't show his finger, rather he shows a kind of bone. And she thinks that his skill is still very skinny and thin. And 1 month passes by. And now her patience just pays off. And she now thinks of eating Hansel the next day. Okay. And she asks Gretel, go and bring the water. So tomorrow we will make preparation to eat your brother. Okay. And Gretel waits all the way, okay, while going to fetch the water. And the next morning, this old witch asks Gretel to go and check the fire in the oven. Okay. And Gretel knows the trick of the witch. Maybe the witch wants to kill me by just asking me to go inside the oven. It's a oven is placed in a very, you can say, it's a different kind of oven where she had never got into. So she pretends that she doesn't know how to enter the oven. So she asks this old witch to teach how to go inside because Gretel plays a trick. And when the old witch enters the oven, the door of the oven, Gretel pushes the witch into the fire, and this old witch dies miserably. And that's how these children get rid of the witch. So, how do the children get rid of the witch, or how does Gretel get rid of the witch? Is the most common question. Okay. So, this is how we finish the heritage of verse. Although there is another, you can say, chapter uh, with the similar title, Gretel. Okay, in this chapter entitled Gretel, it is a kind of you can say uh, in this chapter from a kind of it's a feministic point of view. So Gretel says that how she had been tortured, how she had been badly treated by her father and her brother. Okay, okay. So this is how we finish the first section, the heritage of verse. Now let me take you to the grammar. As far as the grammar is concerned, there are three questions you will be asked from the grammar, and each of these questions comprise of 4 marks. Okay. Uh, okay. So while dealing with the model questions that have been provided to all of you, let me take you to the first question. Okay. First question. Yes. Can you see it? Yeah. Choosing the appropriate verbs given below in the brackets, rewrite the sentences beginning with the words given, and you will be provided with some verbs. Some verbs that have been given to you are make it easier, discourage, force, and encourage. You can download. Uh, so what you do is first you read the question and then with a few words that have been given to you to start the answer, you have to rewrite the answer, but you have to choose the right option. You can't choose the wrong option. When they took the drug, they could relax and enjoy more easily. So this is from unit 6, okay? And the starting has been done with the drug. And first you just read all the questions that have been provided to you to know which verb part is best suitable to continue with the answers. Okay. The first answer, let me write because I know you all have the questions with you. The drug. So it has been asked when they took the drug, they could relax and enjoy more easily. So the drug made it easier. So make changes into made. The drug made it easier for them. They changes into them to Relax and enjoy. Now use the verb. Two verbs, relax and enjoy. Them to relax and enjoy. That's all. So you don't have to write more easily because it has already been mentioned here. So this is the first answer. First answer. Now the next question is, yeah, you can see. Although there was a shortage of food, people still wanted to take the drop. So this is the question, and the starting has been done with a few words. So let me write the few words which will of course help you to write the correct answer. Even the food shortage did not discourage. Now we choose the correct verb, discourage. Even the food shortage did not discourage them from taking the drug. So drug is a kind of, it's not a medicine, it's a kind of intoxicating drug. The next question is, because of the economic crisis, the governments had to take some decisive action. Because the governments, the state came to know that lots of people had been addicted to drugs. And now something had to be done by the government. Now the starting is done. Question number C is answered. The economic crisis. And you have the options, the verb options. The economic crisis forced. So which verb do we choose? Forced. And we choose the verb and change them into the past tense, simple past tense. Okay. The economic crisis forced the governments to take some decisive action. And the final question from this grammar is, after the new law was introduced, people wanted to take the drug even more. And the starting is done with the new law. The new law. And yes, let me just talk about the options. Now only one verb is remain with you, encourage. Okay. So let's use the verb encourage. The new law encouraged. So I'm just preparing you with the answer. The new law encouraged people to take the drug even more. This is how we finish this question. And now the next question, question number 5. So we have just finished question number 4. 4 or 3. This is 3. And now let me take you to question number 4. Yes. Yeah. So question number 4. So this question is asked from unitary relative clauses. Okay. Add an appropriate non-defining relative clause to the following sentences. The first question. When I came back, I found that my car, okay, and it is incomplete. So you have to write a few words, or you have to write a kind of clause. Clause means a short sentence to make the sentences meaningful. And when you get such questions, please do focus on the comma. And just before the comma, what is given here? Car. So, who is or what is focused? Is it the car or I? Car. Because just before the comma, we have got car. So, see, what is the word before the comma? My car. So, with the car, with the non living things, do we use who? No, we use which. When I came back, I found that my car. Now we will end. The ending part is also given here, had disappeared. And now you have to fill up something. You have to fill up something. Car, comma. To save my time, I just wrote like this. Had disappeared. Had okay. Car, which I had bought recently. Or you can have any other option, but the sentence needs to be meaningful. Or you may even say, instead of saying so, you may even say, which was brand new, or which was gifted by my parents. By my parents. Okay, and the final words are already given. So now, if you read the entire sentence, you will find that the sentence has got its full meaning. Now let me take you to the next question. B. At last, they managed to repair the telephone. What is the word that is just before the comma? The telephone. They managed to repair the telephone. So the telephone has been given importance, value, focus. Okay. So if you get such kind of question like, at last they managed to repair the telephone, at last they managed to repair the wire, you can fill up telephone, comma, which was disconnected. Which was disconnected. So you have to just write, I can say, meaningful words so that the sentence gets its full meaning. Now the next question is C. The teacher. And then you have got the blank space. And the final words are turned round suddenly. And just before the comma, what is here? The teacher. So the teacher is given importance here. So you have to say something about the teacher. The teacher. So fill up something here, and then the final words are turned round suddenly. The teacher who was teaching. Who? You can't write which. The teacher, a person. Okay? So for person, we use who. So the relative pronoun is who that we are applying here. The teacher who was teaching the students. You can just make the sentence lengthier if you do like. Who was teaching the students, or who was delivering lecture, or you may even say who was delivering, delivering lecture. Turned round suddenly. Now the sentence gets full meaning. And the final question is, I could not get back to Janakpur. I could not get back to Janakpur. and then you have got the comma. So what is the word that is placed just before the comma? Janakpur. The place has got the importance, and now something you need to write about Janakpur. I could not get back to Janakpur, where I was born. Where I was. So for the places we use where as the relative pronoun, where I was born. Or you may have some other sentences like where I grew up, or where I spent my childhood, or where I studied, or where I went for schooling, all these things. So you have lots of options. So this is how we deal with such uh, uh, relation related to relative clause. So this is how we finish question number 4. Now let me take you to question number 5. The question number 5 is asked from Unit 11. Change the sentences below using either when or as soon as plus simple past, or when slash as soon as plus past perfect, whichever is appropriate. So what we do exactly here is first you read each of the sentences properly. Okay. The trick that you have to play here is in this question, you have two options. You can say when slash as soon as plus simple past. Or the next is when as soon as plus past perfect. Okay. See the sentences, each of the sentences, okay, and find out whether the two actions are that happen immediately one after another as a kind of effect, okay, a very you can say quick effect. The first question, they saw the house and they immediately fell in love with it. Okay, when they saw the house, they fell in love with it immediately. So it did not take much time for them. So it was a kind of quick impact in their mind. So if it is a quick impact, when something happens, when after one event, another event happens as a consequence, as a kind of effect, immediate effect, we use the first rule. Okay. But after the ending of the first event, the second event happens as a kind of regular event. It's not the immediate effect. We use the second rule. When or as soon as plus past perfect. Okay. The first is the immediate consequence. Okay. The event happens one after another without taking much time. Okay. We use the first rule. But if after we finish one event, another event happens as a rule, a regular kind of. For example, when I had cooked my meal, I said to have my meal. So after cooking meal, what you do? You have the meal, okay, with your family members. So it's a kind of regular event. For the regular event, we use this second rule. But as far as this A question is concerned, they saw the house and it did not take much time for them to fall in love with it. So it was an immediate, a kind of, you can say effect, okay. So the answer is when or as soon as, any one you can use, either when or as soon as they saw the house. Look, we use simple past here. Simple past. Why? Because the first event has a direct connection with the second event and they happen almost one after another immediately. Okay. It doesn't take much time for another event to happen. Okay. It's a kind of reaction. What do you say? Reaction of the first event into the second immediately. When or as soon as they saw the house, comma, they fell. They fell in love with it. And while dealing with such questions, you have to omit. You have to omit a few words. Let me highlight upon the words that you need to omit. Omit the words. Or don't write the words like immediately, straight away, or instantly. Because they give the meaning of as soon as. When we apply as soon as, you don't need to write these words because these words and as soon as give the same meaning. The next question. I wrote the letter and posted it straight away. So why do you write the letter? To post it, isn't it? It's a regular event. It's not a reaction, okay? It's a regular event, okay? So that's why you don't use the first rule, rather you use the second rule. So the answer will be like this. B. When or as soon as. What is the subject? I. And now change this V2 verb wrote into had plus V3 because we are going to apply the second rule. It is not the reaction. It's a kind of regular action. One action finishing, another action starting, a kind of regular event. When or as soon as I had written. You can't write I wrote, I had written. So when or as soon as I have written the letter, comma, I, and even and you have to and, but, not required. Not required. Yes. When or as soon as I had written the letter, I posted it. And straight away has to be just driven out. The last, second last question. The train passed and immediately the crossing barrier went up. It is also a kind of regular event. The train passed and after the train passed, the crossing barrier, it just went up. It is also a kind of regular orderly event, okay? One thing finishing, another starting, okay? It's not the reaction. It happens every time the train passes, okay? That's why we use the second rule here as well. So the answer will be like this. C. When or as soon as the train had passed. Passed, comma. And yes, I have already told you, we have to omit the words like immediately and. So this and immediately, you just take them out from this sentence. When or as soon as the train had passed, the crossing barrier went up. And the last question from this section is, he left the house straight after breakfast. Yes, this questions is rather tricky. Okay. The question, let me just write the question to show you which event took place in the beginning and which event followed. D. He left the house straight after breakfast. Before leaving the house, he had had his breakfast. Okay. He did not leave the house before having his breakfast. So this event took place in the beginning and this is the second event and it's a regular thing. After you when you want to go to the college or you want to go for to the office, you just take some meal or breakfast. So it's a kind of not reaction. Okay, it is not a reaction, it's a regular kind of action, regular kind of work. So be very tricky, and this part should be brought in the beginning, when or as soon as. Now just think about the past perfect sentence that includes the word breakfast as well. When or as soon as he had, or instead of this had, you can even write this verb taken, because even to have means to take. So this verb had is used here as an auxiliary, and this is the main verb. Okay, so don't get confused why these two heads have been placed in a single sentence. So they are occasionally seen in most of the sentences, one acting as the auxiliary and another acting as the main verb. So when or as soon as he had breakfast, comma, he left the house. This is the answer. Okay. And after this, or we have finished this grammar section, and now let me take you to the free writing questions. Okay, free writing questions. So this time the free writing questions are given more importance to see the efficiency of the students, how clever they are in writing, uh, in the writing process. Okay. The first question that has been provided in the model question is, a friend has written to you that she or he is planning to go on a tour. Write a letter to him or her, giving him or her the name of some places in about 120 words. And this letter should be very brief, because it has been asked only for 5 marks. Okay. And don't forget to apply the correct format. It's a very easy format. When you write the letter to your parents, you write the letter to your friends, it's a very easy format. Okay. The format of writing the letter to your friends and relatives is just address. For example, Jolpati, Kathmandu, and the date is today is 25th, Kartik. Okay, and then you just start with dear friend. And when you are writing the letters to your relatives or friends, at least there should be 3 paragraphs in the letter writing. The first paragraph is known as introductory. In the introductory part, you just convey to your friend that you are okay with the blessings of God, or say something, some good news, okay, that you have heard even from your friend, okay. But don't mention the purpose of the letter in the first paragraph. Okay. How are you? So you may start with how are you? I hope everything is fine. All these things, okay. Oh, I was very happy to know that you had secured uh, excellent marks in your examinations. I really congratulate you. So, when are you coming to my place? Or all these things. And when you have done writing the introductory part, maybe a few sentences, now you change the paragraph. Second paragraph, okay? Second paragraph. Second paragraph. So, in the second paragraph, your purpose of writing the letter should be clarified. Okay? Because as a friend, he or she has written that he or she is planning to go on a tour. Okay? Write a letter to him or her, giving him or her the name of some places. I'm very happy. I'm really excited that you are planning to go on a tour. So, where are you planning or which places have you decided? You may even ask a few questions. And if you are confused about the places where you want to visit, so let me give you the places where you should not fail to visit. Maybe Pokhara. You may give the example of Pokhara. So Pokhara is one of the prettiest, one of the naturally beautiful cities of Nepal, okay, which attracts hundreds and thousands of tourists every year. So you may even ask your friend to visit Lumbini, the birthplace of Gautam Buddha. And if he or she is very much interested for trekking, he or she may even go for short treks, Annapurna trekking way, okay, Annapurna base camp. So you may just give a few names, or you may even ask your friend to go to Mustan, okay, and visit the temple that is in the highest altitude known as Muktinath, all these things. And after you have finished giving the or just clarifying the purpose of writing the letter, now the last part is known as conclusion. The second paragraph is done successfully, and the final paragraph is known as conclusion. So you should not write conclusion, it is in your mind, okay? So conclusion part. So uh, convey my namaste to your parents and say my big hello to your siblings, your brothers and sisters. Okay. Hoping to meet you soon to hear your trip experience. Finished. Your friend and give your name. Okay. Very easy way. Yes, and you may even be asked to write not only this kind of letters, you may even be asked to write a kind of application letter. So please read a few books where you are given the examples of writing the application letters. Okay. Now the final question provided in the model paper is write couple of paragraphs on role of youths in reforming the society. And look, this question is asked for 10 marks. So you have to pay attention to such questions which carry a very good mark. What is the title? Role of youths. And the marks in title is 10. Okay. First of all, you just write the topic. What is the topic of this paragraphs? Role of youths. And first paragraph should talk about who are youths. Youths are the backbone of the society. Okay. They lead the society. They can lead the society towards progress, towards a kind of prosperity. So without the youths, we cannot imagine a country to smoothly develop further. Okay, the youths can really contribute to uplift the image of the society, to bring meaningful changes in the society. So you just give or write down the ideas that come into your mind. And then in the second paragraph, what could be the strong role of youth in reforming the society? You may just mention the few roles. For example, the youths can wipe out all the evil customs of our society, such as child marriage, discrimination, hooliganism, drug addiction, drug related issues, and similar others. So they can make the groups and they can lead the campaign so that they could bring some meaningful changes in the societies with their united force. Okay, I hope I have been able to deal with the questions that have been provided in the model question from by the NEB, and I'm really hopeful that you will pay attention and you will secure really very good marks in the upcoming examination. My all the best wishes to the students across the nation, and I also extend my warm wishes on the festival of light known as Deepavali. So enjoy, but don't forget to concentrate on your exams because it is knocking already on your door. Thank you for joining me. Thank you.